This episode of Bulletproof Cash Flow is brought to you by Realty Dynamics. Learn how people like you can build substantial passive income while creating wealth for the long term through real estate investing. Visit rdyne.com. That's RDYNE.com.
And so one of those things that I've been fighting for is 1031 exchange. That's been on the chopping block. They want to make adjustments. They want to do this and do that. And that is, they look at it as, the richer is getting richer off the 1031 exchange. And they forget that you and I could be, investors. It's not about the billionaire that's making billions when you're trying to, you're talking about mom and pop landlords. You're talking about the individual that maybe inherited a home and now is trying to do this, and you're trying to tax them. And it would essentially create more of a housing crisis, inventory issue, affordability if you take away or do major modifications to the 1031 exchange.
Working because you want to, not because you have to, is financial freedom. And we want to help you create that. Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We're going to teach you how to achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host is a multifamily syndicator and property developer. He's done deals reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll hear from experts in all aspects of real estate investment, finance, development, and management. Everything you need is right here. This is the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. And this is your host, Augustino Pintus.
Hey everyone, it's Augustino. The world development is heating up as we're seeing these cap rates compress on multifamily assets and other asset classes as well in the real estate world. Now, this opens up the opportunity to not only consider revitalizing neighborhoods through ground-up development and redevelopment, but also opportunities for investors to help get in with equity to help get these deals done. Now, today's guest knows all about this topic as he specializes in commercial real estate investment property acquisitions and commercial real estate sales in general. He started his real estate career back in 2014 as a realtor, and he migrated to commercial real estate shortly thereafter. Now, after growing his business and his personal network, he launched MoHall Commercial and Urban Development in 2019. Now, today, he focuses on real estate development and redevelopment of commercial properties with a goal of revitalizing communities and build wealth through real estate for his investors. Now, he does this with the understanding that really focusing on what investors want and providing value to them. That is ultimately what it's all about. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Moses Hall to the show. Moses, buddy, thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, excellent. Now, guys, if you like what Moses has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at MoHall Commercial right? UD.com. So it's MoHall Commercial UD.com. Okay, Moses, go ahead and tell listeners a little bit about your journey.
Well, as you kind of mentioned, I kind of got started in the industry the year 2014. I've always had a passion for real estate, but at the time that I had transitioned to the age of 18, that's when we had the biggest meltdown of our economy in 2008. So I paused on my real estate dreams and went to college. After graduating college, I shifted into the event loft space business. And so I had an artist loft and I rented it out to other artists and held private events and did different cool things in the city of Chicago. And I came across an article of the building owners on what they essentially acquired the property for. I did the math on kind of what they kind of put into the property because it's an artist loft. You don't have to really do too much. It's open, beam ceilings, it's not too much that you have to kind of do in an artist loft. And then I realized what values have increased in the area for. So I took into account what he was charging me for rent, what he was getting other tenants for rent, because it's all listed online. You can do a simple Google search. And a light bulb went off in my head and I said, hey, I need to learn how to do commercial investment in sales. And so that piqued my interest. It kind of reignited my passion for real estate again, because I was on the wrong side of the deal. And so when I realized what he acquired it for, especially before it became the hot area, it was kind of an emerging submarket. And then over time with developments coming to the area, his property values increased. So he got in at a perfect time, and I realized the potential equity he had in the property. And I said, I need to learn this for myself. And so that's what encouraged me to go get my real estate license. Because like I said, I was just a recent college grad. I didn't have, necessarily a ton of money to pay a coach to learn. So I thought the way to learn was to come in as a broker and build my foundation there and then branch out to achieve some of my goals that I wanted to do in the industry.
Excellent. So, and that's the thing, many guys, they go ahead and they get the coach, which I strongly recommend for many people. I mean, just like you and I did the same sort of thing, yeah. Right? It's like kind of like we saw where the opportunity was and we fully committed, went all in, and just got our hands on our own material and really pushed through it. I mean, I would probably say that my journey would have been compressed if I would have got a coach. I'm sure yours would have too, yes. Right? But it's kind of like you have to deal with what you got. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but these days now, you're really focused on investing for, I guess, in affordable housing, that kind of thing, right? In Chicago.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of opportunity. Chicago is the third largest metropolitan city in the U.S. And even though we still have affordable rents compared to New York and California, but there's still an issue in certain communities. In terms of housing affordability. And so, my mission and passion is to help some of these communities have affordable housing. I mean, that's definitely an issue throughout the country with inflation and people, having issues staying on top of things. So I want to be able to present a solution that's lucrative to both sides. I know there's certain legislation that's been presented that sounds good, but in reality is not good, not just only for the investor, but also for the tenant as well. And so that's kind of how we've gotten into this housing crisis where there's not enough inventory, but demand is high. And that's partially because, like you said, housing affordability. I seek to, present solutions to help solve those issues.
Yeah, excellent. So you touched on some of the legal aspects, so we should probably go into that for a second. But before we go into that, though, how do you define affordable? Because for we have many C class and B class type of assets, and when we are raising capital for our deals, we mention affordable, and people automatically think, oh, it must be Section 8 or it must be some sort of voucher, and it's not that at all. I mean, in our book, it's not that at all. How do you define it?
Well, like you said, affordability is also defined by the area, the median income. There's a certain percentage. And like you said, there is unfortunately a stigma that comes with hearing Section 8 or voucher programs. And honestly, it's all about vetting who you allow into your property. I think a lot of investors mess up by not properly vetting or hiring the proper property management company because these tenants, whether they're receiving Section 8 voucher or market rate tenants, they still have the same vetting process. You just cannot discriminate them based on source of income, but you can still have other requirements to vet your tenants properly. And I think that's what investors fail to realize, that you can still vet your tenants the same way that you would vet your market rate tenants. And so it's just all things about your risk appetite, your strategy. But affordability is typically based on the area, on median income. And like you say, you get different incentives, tax breaks, tax credits, other things to make the deal make sense in these communities. So those are the type of things that, and the reason I have a passion for that is because, I'm originally from New York, and my parents, middle-class family, in the beginning, we were struggling. We lived in a rundown apartment filled with mold, rats, all different types of things. But my parents had a vision, to achieve the American dream, which is home ownership. And they took the little savings that they had and invested in a home in Queens. And they purchased it at the time in 1994 for about $134,000. In today's market, it's probably valued over $800,000, $900,000.
Easily.
So,
yeah. I used to live in Queens. Yeah, I know all about that. Yeah.
So just that, to have that passion where you have working class parents that came from pretty much nothing, and to save something and to achieve the American dream and to have that equity in the home, like you said, they purchased for 100 and something thousand, and now it's worth $900,000 in this market. I think that's amazing. And that's how my parents been able to kind of stay afloat and afford things, college tuition, things of that nature, using our house as a leverage and paying down debts and pulling equity, all those different types of strategies that most investors use. So that passion for me in terms of affordability and housing development came from just seeing my parents and how they worked themselves up to achieving the American dream.
Hey, Augustino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 844-428-1344 to receive weekly book recommendations from me. Excellent. Now, something you touched on a bit ago is the legislation that's yes. coming through in Chicago. Talk a little bit about that. What are you seeing in your market, which I'm sure many other places are seeing the same sort of thing?
One of the things that, I sit on several committees and board of directors of different organizations. And one of the biggest responsibilities that I have on these types of boards is advocacy. And a lot of times you're working with politicians that don't quite understand real estate. It's hard for them to have an expertise in every subject matter that they're voting on. And so it's my job to present to them the actual data of what they're voting on, not opinion, but actual facts and data. And so one of those things that I've been fighting for is 1031 exchange. That's been on the chopping block. They want to make adjustments. They want to do this and do that. And that is, they look at it as, the richer is getting richer off the 1031 exchange. And they forget that you and I could be, investors. It's not about the billionaire that's making billions when you're trying to, you're talking about mom and pop landlords. You're talking about the individual that maybe inherited a home and now is trying to do this, and you're trying to tax them. And it would essentially create more of a housing crisis, inventory issue, affordability if you take away or do major modifications to the 1031 exchange. Another thing is rent control. We see that in other markets that it's been implemented, it has not been successful in the way that it's been intended. And so you can't implement rent control, but continue raising taxes and utilities and all other things that keep going up. That doesn't make sense for an investor to invest. So these are certain things that I go on Capitol Hill and lobby on behalf of my clients, on behalf of my industry, to let them know that even though your intentions may be well to help the common individual and common family, but it actually has the reverse effect when you implement these policies.
So you think you're going to be a politician then, or what? Is that going to happen?
No, I do not.
Sounds like, that's good. We need representation, because it's like, it's funny that this whole rent control nonsense, can clearly see where I stand on the whole thing. I agree with you 100%. It's never worked anywhere. Taxing the hell out of people doesn't work. And yet it's repeated over and over and over again. I don't get it. Don't understand,
Yeah, and so if like you said, not to get too deep in the political reign, but we see where markets where they have a little bit more relaxed legislation and regulation, we're seeing that those markets are thriving. When you promote big business, it's an incentive for corporations to move their headquarters there. Once their headquarters there, that means that jobs are coming. Jobs coming, that means there's housing needed. Housing needed, that means there's other services that are needed to service a new group of folks that are moving there. That spurs development, because now you need this, now you need that. So it's kind of a trickling effect when you have certain relaxed legislation, because it promotes other things to come to that local town and city.
Nice. So one of the things I know that you're working on when you're putting these deals together is you're focusing on a neighborhood, and you're putting together these opportunity funds, right? Is that right?
So like you said, with the previous administration, I know they had started with the opportunity funds, and it's just a way, I think, what attracted a lot of people. You can take capital gains from whether it's the stock market, whether it's real estate, and you can invest into these funds. And after, I believe, is it 10 years or so, you don't have to pay anything, and you're actually, helping do good in these types of communities that need this type of development. So I know a lot of investors have been, investing in these funds, capital's being deployed. People are, like you said, tax saving strategies. Like I said, no one wants to be heavily, overly taxed for making smart investments. And so, like you said, these are just strategies that not only helps investors, but also helps the community because now you're bringing development. And so I think there's a misconception that saying that if you do any type of community work, that there's no returns to make or money to make. You can definitely marry the two in terms of development in these communities and also make money at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we use the OZ fund model for a couple of our deals. Actually, this one that I'm in right now at the Rockefeller Building, where this is an OZ deal right here.
Yeah.
So phenomenal deal. Yeah, just like you said though, all the gains that we're going to make after 10 years are come out back to the investors all tax free. How do you beat that? You can't beat that deal. It's a great deal. It's a great deal.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the deals that you're putting together right now, then maybe can you give us an example of what a deal might look like?
A lot of multifamily stuff that's kind of, especially kind of on Chicago South Side areas. That's kind of where all the, development. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of the Obama Library that's going up in the Woodline community. So there's been a lot of investment kind of there in the multifamily, also retail, hotel, all those different types of stuff, because like you said, they're expecting that this, development is going to revitalize this community in a big way. So people have been investing. They said they have OZ boundaries and lines, and this kind of falls into those things. And so, like you said, just been kind of working on those type of multifamily deals. Like you say, you have a fund, you deploy it, you kind of do the numbers. Of course, there's still, certain regulations and different things that you have to kind of work with an attorney with and other advisors with. But the kind of the deals that I'm kind of working on is kind of in the multifamily sector of the OZ type of stuff.
Cool. And are these typically ground up or just you're taking an old building and revitalizing it? What are you doing more of these days?
So right now, I know construction costs is crazy in terms of, materials, labor. And so it depends on the deal. Some I'll be able to, because there are, unfortunately, a lot of blighted areas in Chicago Southside neighborhoods. And so sometimes you're just taking a building that's already has the bones and then kind of redeveloping that way. There are some, new ground up construction going on kind of like in the Bronzeville community, where it's mixed use, where you have, apartments above and then retail at the bottom. And so that's kind of the deals, but mainly a lot of ground up development is taking place in the Chicago area.
Nice. So now a big part of putting all these deals together is then attracting the type of capital that's going to be needed. Right. So I know the one thing that you're really big on is using social media to really help grow the awareness and get leads. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like what sort of things are you doing on social to really, I guess, build awareness to you? Right. I mean, obviously you can't promote deals. I guess it depends on how you're doing it, but how are you doing that?
You know what? I just become a resource for investors and developers. When you're a wealth of knowledge, I know with technology, people, and platforms, people try to bypass certain advisors and experts in the field. But when you are a resource of knowledge and wisdom, it attracts people. When you can tell, hey, did you know that you can use these capital gains and reinvest? Because sometimes people don't know. Certain things. It's like if you work in, a high level executive corporate job, but, you don't have time to invest into real estate. Hey, I can show you what to do with that extra $300,000 that you just made in capital gains. Let me, and so that's kind of, I leverage LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more of a business to business kind of platform. And I have a lot of investors and developers I'm connected with. But the biggest thing, the way I kind of leverage social media is just being a resource of knowledge. When you can tell people about expected interest rates, funding, opportunities and stacks and how to get creative and putting deals together, people will naturally reach out to you. Hey, I saw that you posted this. I want a little bit more information on how you can X, Y, and Z. Pretty much I'm a problem solver. If someone has a problem, I provide a solution, whether it's, hey, I have XX cash and I don't know what to do with it. Oh, hey, I'm looking to do this type of deal. Do you know X, Y, and Z? And when I can be that resource and wealth of knowledge, people will naturally come to you.
Nice. So when you are pushing your content out on LinkedIn, then how are you getting people to engage with you? Because it's one thing, I mean, someone will just put a photo and just like the photo or whatever, but engagement is everything. Like if you can start a dialogue, that's really how really you'll be able to demonstrate more value. So how do you do that?
So one of the things that I like to do, a tactic is, if it's a hot topic at the moment and I know that investors are going to want to know more information, I'll post something about it. And then what I'll do is if one person comments on the post, I will delay responding to them, maybe to the next day. And then once I respond to them, it will come back up in people's feed again. And so what happens is the thing I love about LinkedIn is you don't even have to be connected to me to see my post. If someone in my network likes the post, then everyone in their networks likes the post. And then, like you said, it's just all about content. If it's something, you have to know your audience, what they're looking for, what type of knowledge they're seeking. And if you kind of share that content with them, they will naturally engage, ask questions, inbox you, and then you can kind of continue the dialogue from there. But like you said, your content has to be informational or something that you've achieved, whether it's, hey, like you say, you just closed on a deal. Man, I was looking for a deal just like that. If you have anything else, please put me on your email list. So engaging content like that gets people to kind of reach out to you and comment. And like I said, sometimes I'll delay responding so that it can stay on people's timeline for a week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, so how often are you posting stuff, like aside from you're responding, but your other stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not posting all the time, maybe once a week. I may post something once every 2 weeks. Like I said, when I post, I want people to pay attention to it. I don't want to overwhelm me with a ton of posts because then you kind of tune out, or you keep seeing me all the time. But what I do is I engage in other people's posts as well, so I can stay top of mind. I comment on other people's posts and different things of that nature. But like you said, I may post once a week. Like you said, you just want to get to the point, get people's attention, and be a resource of information.
Nice. Excellent. So after let's say, for instance, these people engage, they talk to you, or they respond to the post or whatever. Do you actually engage like on a private level to try to get them into the funnel to eventually convert them, or like how does that part work?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, typically we'll exchange contact information. I'll give them an email. We may hop on a Zoom call. Depending on if they're just kind of a warm lead, like you said, you'll follow up and you'll kind of stay in contact. If it's a hot lead, sometimes it might be someone looking to sell a building or something like, oh, hey, I saw that you sold this. I have someone that's looking to sell the same exact thing. Are you, so it just all depends on if it's kind of just a warm lead. If, they're just kind of filling it out, then you kind of put them, on your pipeline, or if it's a hot lead, they're ready to go today. So it just all depends. But yeah, sometimes like people reach out to my inbox, we'll follow up with a meeting or a Zoom call, and we'll kind of set the timeline and process from there. So yes, I'm able to convert people that engage on my posts to actual business leads. Yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, because that's really what it is. I mean, and it's funny that the same people are on just about all these platforms, but they engage very differently depending on where they are. It's I always thought it was the funniest thing, right? But you're absolutely right. LinkedIn is the place if you're going to try to build a professional a relationship with someone. Right. That's really what you have to be doing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I know, and we talked a little bit in the green room about these inflationary pressures and the price of construction costs, or the price of things or whatever. It is kind of getting out of hand. And I think to your point, what you just said a second ago, creating methodologies for investors to maximize their investment really involves balancing all that stuff, putting them into the right deal, getting the returns back out. I mean, there's a lot to it, right?
Right.
So what are you seeing? What are you predicting for the real estate market, say over the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, kind of like we discussed in the green room, I don't believe that we're going to have the same, recession market crash that we had in 2007, 2008, mainly because there was no type of regulation in those times. Like you said, you can go to the bank with and get 110% loan for a home with no types of checks and balances. And so you had people taking out a $500,000 home loan that can only really afford a $200,000 home. And so when you have those types of practices, that leads to what we saw back then. But we do know historically that typically the market cools off every 10 to 12 years. So what goes up must come down. But right now, the market is so hot, I don't quite see a slowdown just yet. I know everyone's trying to wait out to see if the market is going to crash. And just from the residential side, I know a lot of people, even though interest rates were super low at the time, I think at one point it was like 3%, 2.5%, 3%, depending on where you're at. And a lot of people were, like, oh, I'll wait till the market crash. But now interest rates has rose. So maybe when interest rates were 3%, maybe you could afford a $300,000 home. Now that interest rates are 4.5%, 5%, maybe you can only afford a $250,000 home. So now you've kind of missed out trying to wait for that crash. I think now is the time to buy and hold. I know a lot of people are refining out investors. They're like you said, interest rates were super low, and so they had investment properties already, and they just refied out of their property and invest into another. So I know a lot of investor strategy right now is just buying, and holding. The biggest thing is it's not necessarily when you buy, it's when you sell, if you make the right decision. So I think there's still going to be a lot of robust movement in the multifamily sector. Rents have risen, I think, nationally at least 6%, 7% in terms of rents. And so the multifamily sector is holding on pretty strong right now. Just because, like I said, it's a trickle effect. What's happening is there's not enough inventory for single family homes. People are purchasing, people are getting into these bidding wars, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, depending on your market, over list price. And so when they don't get it, what happens? They have to renew their lease because now they're not transitioning from renter to home ownership. And so now everyone's, like you said, everyone's delaying, saying, the market's going to crash. And so now people are holding off on purchasing, waiting for the market crash and renewing leases. So right now, the multifamily sector is super strong as rents has risen nationally across the board, which makes it attractive for investors to invest in at the moment.
Yeah. No. Hey, listen, I think that we are going to become a renter nation.
Yeah.
We're well on our way there. And with all this new inventory, we're filling a need, right? People actually need to have housing.
Correct.
And they're, just to your point, there's no other way for these folks to get into to put a roof over their head, right? There's no other way for them to do it. Right. So by us developing and creating homes for these people, they have a place to live and enjoy time with their families. So that's the way I look at it, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, good. So we're getting to that point now. So if someone's listening right now and they heard what you said, that your story really resonates with them, what is the one piece of bulletproof advice that you would offer them?
I would offer them, build a solid team. You cannot do anything in this industry without a solid team. And I think that's where a lot of investors go wrong at and have to learn those hard lessons in not building a solid team, whether it's, using a broker, whether it's using an attorney, especially if you're doing development, you need a solid construction contractor team, an accountant that can help you with strategies on tax saving methods. These different things, if you're listening to become a developer or an investor, the biggest piece of advice that I can give you is building you a solid team that can help you be successful in all your endeavors.
Yeah, 100%. Again, and to reiterate that too, one thing that you're really good at is demonstrating value And you have to demonstrate that value to that team as well, right?
Absolutely.
You really have to show you're credible and you're for real. If you don't do that, no one's going to want to believe in you.
Absolutely.
That's a big part of it. Absolutely. Very good. All right, guys. Now, if you want to reach out to Moses, you can reach him via his website at mohallcommercialud.com. We'll have a link in the description as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Greatly appreciate it. Hopefully, you got some insight on development, the world of development, and some of the critical factors that come into really deciding whether you want to do development or not. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next episode. Take care.
You've been listening to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had fun. Make sure to visit our Apple Podcast page and leave us a 5-star review. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. For real estate coaching, events, and resources, hit up bulletproofcashflow.com. Till next time.
No information in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are limited to accredited or sophisticated investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure and subscription documentation and subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice.